Hey, good morning. Chuck here with Apple Drains. Today we're down in a flooded crawl space. You can see it's about 4, 5, 6 inches deep here. What we've got to do is, of course, pump it out so we can install a good sump pit, footer tiles, and keep this area dry. So they actually had an old sump pump that they'd been using to try to keep their area dry. So we're just going to use that and pump this water out through the crawl space vent, and then we'll be able to start digging. We're starting to pump out the crawl space. You can see the water's coming right out. It's going to take it about 15-20 minutes to get where we can dig, and then we'll be able to install that pit. So we're starting to pump this out, and it's hard to see because it is dark, but you can see back to the back there. There's a lot of water down underneath this thing. So here on the outside, we've got a couple of downspouts. We've already trenched this section down through here. The water that you see comes from the sump pump where we've been pumping out that crawl space. We've got the end of our trench right there. We just need to connect it. This water will drain. Then we'll lay our solid pipe down through here, connect up the downspouts, and also core that wall and bring that sump pump out through the wall as well. So for the do-it-yourselfer, if you've got a flooded crawl space and you're going to do this yourself, I would suggest that you give the water a place to go first. So in other words, what we've done is we've gone ahead and hooked up the downspout drains and created the trench for the discharge so that we're able to go ahead and put a sump basin and a sump pump and actually core through the wall, bringing that water out of the crawl space before we go in and dig. You're still going to get really muddy. It is a mud pie. If your crawl space is flooded, it's going to be a mud pie when you're in there working. You could wait a few days, leave your temporary pump up, but if you go ahead and create the discharge just like this and get that water out of there, you'll be able to work on this crawl space, get this job done, and it really doesn't take that long to do. However, it is a real muddy mess, and we're pumping that water out as we're digging. So I've been down in the crawl space going ahead and digging out the sump basin itself, and you can see how much has been accomplished by the crew. They've already got this discharge line pretty much installed, and you can see where I'm at. I've got the pit ready to go in, and we're still pumping water because even though the top of the surface is dry, the soil is saturated with water. Now I'm just hooking up. I've got the pit in, and I'm hooking up the discharge line. This is really important. That core that you saw with the hammer drill, these are all part of that. You have to get this water out, and this is the permanent connection. So we're actually hooking up the pump and putting the check valve, the discharge, the riser, all of this is being put together right now. And I've got one guy in there with me, Paul. He's just clearing out that footer tile because that has to get down to the footer level. And then we'll add gravel perforated pipe and bring all of that into the crawl space, one bucket at a time for the gravel. It is very labor intense, especially when it's muddy. And I do apologize, we only have one floodlight available, and it's so dark in here. We're just covered with mud, and I apologize for not getting a whole lot of footage inside of here. And I'm almost ready to unplug the light so that I can reconnect the pump. Once this is secure, I need to reconnect that pump because there is so much water under this soil, in the soil, and it just continues to drain. Very hard to dig, but you know what? If you do this yourself and you keep a smile, I promise you'll be able to do this and save thousands of dollars. So I'm going to unplug the old pump. This was the pump we used to pump this out, the customer's pump. And once that light goes out, it's going to get quite dark. We're going to bring in gravel perforated pipe. It's exactly the same. We have hundreds of videos showing you how to install this. We lay a base of gravel, perforated pipe, and then more gravel back to grade. We don't use a fabric inside the crawl space, not ever. There's no need for that. So it's going to get dark, and you're going to see us go ahead and have a finished product of where we've got all of the water out of this crawl space. And it really only took us about 4.5 hours total. You can see where we're pulling the old hose out of the vent and just about ready to unplug this, and boy does it get dark. This is a great job, and I have to smile and applaud the crew as well as myself. because it took a lot to do all this. And everybody, you know, we get along good, easy to do. It's hard to dig in the mud. I keep saying that. And I apologize. I got the GoPro on my head. It's all over the place. The camera's all over. But just kind of showing you what it really takes to install a system when it's flooded. So let's get rid of this hose, and you can see Paul finishing up the last little bit there, ready for gravel. We're just about ready to bring everything in, and we'll be all set. Okay, so the sump pump picked it up. You can see we've cored down through the wall. This is a discharge pipe, 1.5 inch pipe. It goes down and it ties into the 4-inch, which runs on out here. You can see it coming out, runs on out to the back. So we're putting the gravel into the buckets, down into the barrel. It all goes down into the crawl space. Okay, so you can see our perforated pipe surrounded by gravel. You can't see back in the back here, but we're almost done. Just about got it covered up. We've got it covered with our gravel all along the footer. It goes all the way back to the sump pit in the back, all the way up here to the front of the crawl space. And next thing we're going to do is just take our rake, and you can see this mud that's here. We just need to knock that down. We're just going to pull his existing moisture barrier back. Even though it's dirty, it still works great. Pull that back. Maybe he'll get a new moisture barrier. He didn't want that right now, but that's okay. It still works great. Our system is working great. This water runs all the way down the trench, all the way down the wall, down to the sump pit. Sump pump kicks it on, lifts it up, takes it outside. So, covering up wet soil, a little tougher than dry soil. You end up having to use the shovel, then come back and get the rake. Hey, this is Chuck with Apple Drains, reminding you that if you believe you can do something, I guarantee you can do it. You might get a little bit muddy, but you can do it.